It seems like every brand is becoming a media company with podcasts, newsletters, YouTube channels, and even CEOs creating content. But is this a passing trend or the future of building trust and growing an audience? On today's episode, Andy King, Director of Podcasts at Buchwald and former SiriusXM sports podcast executive, joins us to discuss why brands are investing in content, the role of podcasting in modern marketing, and how to create content people actually want to come back for. So thanks for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, and we met actually because I feel like our dogs became friends instantly.
Yes.
That's what happens when you have a dog. I feel like you start to know the whole neighborhood.
Yeah, especially when you have adorable dogs like we do.
Yes.
So, I think they became friends, and then real quickly I was like, oh, wait a minute, I think our careers overlap. It might be worth us meeting and talking.
Yeah, and it's so true, especially if you would have asked me, even 8-9 years ago when I started my company, if I would be having, clients who have podcasts or even myself having a podcast, I would have been like, no, but look at the world we're in now.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, everybody has a podcast, and, it's the thing, it's kind of like, podcasts are like elbows. Everybody has at least one of them.
Yes.
And, the difference is between like, yeah, sure, everybody has a podcast, but does that podcast actually reach an audience, and is that audience monetizable, or three completely different things?
Exactly. And we're going to get into that today. And I want to go back a little bit of how has content changed since your early broadcasting days?
Really, I think the biggest change is the integration of basically on-demand content. So whether we call that podcasting or it just used to be like, oh, we post our episodes on a website or whatever it is, that ability for people to go back and consume radio shows, which are basically just the early version of what a podcast is, that changed everything. And, in the beginning of my career, which I started down here in Miami, working for some local sports radio stations down here, we were churning out content left and right, but we didn't even start making our episodes available on a website that you can go back and listen to until maybe 15 years into launching our channels, right? So it wasn't until probably the mid-10s that we were like, oh yeah, we probably should be doing this. And it was just radio and certain parts of medium were just slow to adapt to the trends, which were, individuals basically evolving from writing blogs to how can I take this written word and turn it into spoken word, and very quickly that became your podcast.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you even brought up that, because I even remember, and I feel like I age myself when I say it, but I remember TiVo.
Right.
When that came out, it was oh, if you missed a TV show, don't worry, you could just record it. And it was a huge deal. And then when it became in on the cable, and now no one has to worry about that anymore. Everything's streamable. Everything is whenever you want it. And that's even some of the unique factors of some of these podcasts and TV shows of oh, it comes out every week. You have to wait till the next one.
Yeah, it used to be in radio, it was very much okay, you had to get into your car at the top of the hour and make sure you caught the very beginning. And whether it was if it was a talk show, it's well, if you don't tune in at the top, you're going to miss it. And if you jump in 7 minutes in or 22 minutes in, it changes everything. What changed or what happened is one, we started getting a lot better data. And so that changed, we got better data about how listening habits with the audiences. And so that allowed people to start changing their shows and the styles that they show, without realizing okay, people aren't always going to start at the top of the hour. They might tune in at 10 after or 13 after or 27 after the hour, whatever it is. So how do we make sure that we can change our content and delivery so people are still hearing the best stuff? And then very quickly it was oh, wait a minute. Now they can just rewind this stuff or go back and listen to it, on demand. And that's kind of with the birth of podcasting just sort of changed everything. And it is funny to think about it. I remember being a child and being okay, not even having TiVo at the time, and being okay, I guess, can we use a VCR? How can we record this TV show? Because I might be playing sports at 8:00 at night and didn't sit home to watch whatever TV show I wanted to watch.
It's so true. And why are brands investing so heavily in owned media?
I would say primarily just because of the dedicated audience that it brings you. I think what's an interesting thing with brands is it used to be okay, we want to get in front of the biggest eyeballs as possible, right? That's why, what you look at it on television and shows like Friends back in the day, you could be charging $20 million for a commercial spot because that's where everybody was at that time and they were locked in, right? And with podcasting, we saw the same. Okay, all the big advertisers were just mostly spending their big money on the Joe Rogans of the world, the Call Her Daddies and things like that. And we've seen a shift over the last couple of years of brands realizing I can get more bang for my buck if I partner with a smaller podcast, smaller content creator that has a dedicated audience, but we'll get a higher return and higher engagement from maybe an audience that's the size of 10 to 50,000 listeners or viewers per episode than 100,000 to a million plus.
Yeah, and also being able to control too, if they're owning that and it's smaller, they could control who they want to partner with, who they want those ads to be with.
They can control that. There's a lot more data out there, just how they can target specifically what is the demographic you're trying to reach. Like, you could be a brand and be running a campaign, and for the first 3 months of that campaign, you're really trying to reach, 25 and under. And then the back half, you're trying to reach 25 and older. It's like, okay, well, you're not going to work with the same podcasters or the same content creators because they're reaching different spaces.
It's interesting that you say that too. One of my favorite influencers, she has a podcast, but she also has a radio show 2 days a week on SiriusXM.
Okay.
And now if you don't have a SiriusXM subscription, she still publishes that radio show like to a podcast, but she also has her individual podcast too, which is separate content. And the audiences are very different. And I think, with her own channel, she's probably skewing younger. And with SiriusXM, she is having people older call in and people older participate. So it's interesting to see also how those audiences, segment off.
Yeah, like the SiriusXM audience and in general has always been, an older audience. When I used to work there, the phrase was, the target demo was, affluent men with money to spend unfortunately. I was like, a lot of what we did on the sports side of where it was targeting to men. Really, it was more like 40 plus. It was they had disposable income to be able to pay for a subscription. So that's what we were trying to target. And so that's what the brands and advertisers were. A lot of that has changed now, right? Where we see the subscription model is less of like, okay, it has to be geared towards a certain economic bracket, right? As opposed to, no, there are people in lower economic income brackets that will pay for premium content, pay for the subscription model for podcasters and content creators. And those people are just as valuable because now it's like, I don't care if you make less than $75,000 or more than $200,000. Ultimately, you're already making that commitment to me to pay money for my content every week or every month. So I'm winning and my partners will win because of that.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to note. And I think, too, in a world of like short attention spans, it's interesting to see how podcasts still have a place. And I think people still want that long form content.
People love storytellers. That's always been the thing that kind of brought me into this side of the business is like, and I liked the evolution from like radio into podcasting has always been like, I'm an audio person first, right? And the reason is like, you can visually look like whatever you want to look like, but if the words coming out of your mouth are not compelling, and if you can't captivate me with the way you tell your story and the way you inflect on certain words, then it doesn't matter how good you look or how visual and creative your background is, right? And so to me, ultimately, it's this place of like, long form audio is storytellers. It's people that can captivate an audience and keep them locked in for longer times. I think that's more valuable than, say, content creators that can capture your attention for 2 minutes at a time on an Instagram or TikTok video, right? It's if you can get people to sit down and listen or watch with you for 30 minutes, an hour, or 3 hours a day, that's power. That's dedication and commitment from your audience.
It's so true. And do you think podcasts are becoming the new business card for leaders and brands?
I don't know if I would say that per se.
It's a stretch.
Yeah, I don't know if I would say that. I think podcasts are a necessity for content creators. I think it's a necessity for brands in the sense of having some sort of a home base, right? But if you're a brand, you can be Nestle, right? And you don't have to have like a Nestle podcast, right?
Right, it's not necessary.
Right, it's more like, okay, who are you choosing as the content creators that you want to partner your brand with and integrate with into their programming, whether it's through sponsorships and sponsor segments or host read ads or whatever it may be, right? That's more of your landing space, right? For content creators, yes, I firmly believe that like a podcast is a great thing for you to have, even if it's not your main revenue generator. It's sort of like that perfect landing spot, right? And sort of home base for you to promote everything you're doing, right? So if you're an actress per se, and you're got these movies that you're doing, or you got your TV show you're in, well, your TV show might only be relevant for 12 weeks out of the year. But how are you going to consistently tell your audience about what you're doing and how to keep them excited for the next season or for these other projects you're doing? To me, having a podcast gives you a place to connect with people consistently. And as long as you understand what the goals are that you personally are trying to get out of it, then you're good to go.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I don't think everyone needs one. I think they can still utilize it in different ways or be advertisers or be part of it and still be part of the conversation without having to overdo it or overextend themselves as well.
Yeah, like if you're a brand, you have to think, where am I going to get a better return, right? And am I going to get a better return by launching our own podcast and then hopefully having our own little network, or is it that your network is, here's the 10 content creators that you've invested in long-term partnerships with, so that when people think about that show, they think about brands A, B, and C that are part of that show, and you want to be one of those 3 things that people think about.
Exactly. And that leads us to our next part of this conversation. As a social media agency, and I told you this before, I constantly hear from clients, oh, should I start a podcast? Do I need one? And I think it's, going back to who benefits most from launching one. And like you said, creators, great, but not every brand does it work.
Yeah. I think really it comes down to each individual person, right? Like, ultimately, I think there's value in it, but like, what are you trying to get out of it? And I think we talked about this previously. It's like, if your idea is, hey, I want to get into podcasting because I just want to do it as a hobby, that's fine. Great. Go ahead for it. But like, if you're doing this, like what you do with this podcast, this is a important piece of my overall business, then it's something that you have to commit to on a weekly and monthly basis. It's something that it's not only the engagement, the time commitment, engagement of like, okay, I have to prep for the episode, I have to record the episode, but now it's how am I going to promote and connect with my audience throughout the course of the week to keep them to come back and watch this episode, whether it's through clips or engaging them with questions and comments, whatever it may be. There has to be a consistency to connect with people if that's your goal, is to grow your brand, make some money. If not, then just turn on the microphones, record, post it, publish it, and if people find it, great. And then, but the results are going to be that.
Exactly. Yeah. And when I started my podcast, it really became more of an idea of a lot of people. There's a lot of people who do what I do. A lot of agencies who do social media. It's not, a crazy idea of a business. Maybe when I started, it was, a little smaller, but now it's very competitive. So at some point I had to decide like what's going to set me apart. And a lot of times it's the people they're working with. So now people can say like, oh, I've seen Kassie and her team on a podcast. I know what they're talking about. Oh, I can connect with them. Oh, she's publishing content. And also to a lot of these like AI, search engines like ChatGPT and Claude, they're actually using episodes and podcasts to deliver results. So people who are saying like, I need a social media agency in Fort Lauderdale, we're popping up consistently because of the podcast.
And that's why like the SEO and like how you're labeling and tagging your episodes for your podcast are so crucial. And I see this all the time with like some of the clients that I represent, where when I just look at like the labeling of their episode, right? For example, anytime a client will publish an episode and it'll be like, the title of the episode is episode number 172, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, like, do not put that in your title. Like, nobody cares that this is episode 17 or 700. That they can find that in the details, but that should not be in the search engine, because it's not going to get clicks. It's not going to figure into the algorithm. What does is putting in the right sort of words, whether it's like, if you're a sports podcast, for the most part, just put in the words like LeBron, and you got a pretty decent chance that like you're going to get some reaction if there's something NBA happening and people are searching for it, right? So I think that stuff is really important. Also, we've seen, not to get sidebarred on like AI stuff, but like we see that these AI search engines are lazy in a way that they pull, and so yes, you could benefit from making sure your stuff is tagged, but sometimes like I'll use like say Gemini or something like that, and it's just pulling things from Reddit, and I'm like, this isn't really credible stuff. You just search through, found a couple keywords, and you're like, let me suggest this article. It's like that has nothing to do with the information I'm trying to get.
Yeah, no, it's definitely something to be wary of. And now, what do you think separates successful podcasts from the thousands that disappear after a few episodes?
Consistency and commitment. That is the biggest thing. Most podcasts don't make it to 10 episodes. That's usually the first threshold. There's a lot of reasons why that's the case, right? It's some people have delusions of grandeur, and they assume that the minute they launch their podcast and they put it out there, then they're going to get 100,000 downloads or views off the jump, and they're going to be an overnight success.
Yeah.
That is extremely rare. Hardly ever happens. You look at the podcast rankings every single week for the top 100, the 200 shows. It's the same shows every single week, right? Like, it really takes something special to break through. And even if it breaks through for 1 week because it got a big marketing push from a network or something like that, where is it by the 7th or 8th week, right? And so it's the consistency is why people often fail, and it's the commitment, right? It's what I mentioned before. It's knowing that it isn't just open on the microphone, talk, close the microphone, post your episode. It's it's talking to your community, getting out there, going on other podcasts. The best way to promote your podcast is being a guest on other people's podcasts.
Yes.
Like go where the fish already are. Don't try to fish in a lake where there are no fish.
It's so true. And you mentioned consistency. And how important is that compared to production quality?
More important for sure. Like, listen, if something's, to me, the most important thing is always going to be the audio quality, first and foremost. If I close my eyes, whether I'm watching this on YouTube or listening to it on, an audio device, if I close my eyes and it sounds bad, if the sounds like the hosts are way away from their microphones or there is distortion in the levels or whatever it may be, that's an immediate turnoff and you're going to drop out. The visual stuffs can come and go. Like, it's nice to have a set, but honestly, I think the most important thing for content creators, especially if you're starting a new podcast, is worry less about the set, worry more about the quality of the audio and the content that you're actually delivering. Because once you start to build an audience and maybe generate some money, then worry about investing in like a nice, pretty set like what you have here, right? But in the beginning, if it's just like, all right, I need to start getting the reps in and build up, then just get in front of your computer, make sure you have the right lighting, make sure you have a good microphone, and go from there. And then worry about do I need a better studio? Do I need more decorations in the background? Worry about that later. The thing that's going to get people listening and watching your show is the content.
I agree. And that consistency and being able to provide value, I think people start to see, they trust. Then they're like, okay, this is going to happen every week. Oh, these people produce good quality content. Oh, I trust this person. I want to listen to them more. It does help.
We are all creatures of habit, as cliche as it has become. And if you are a podcaster or someone new and you want to start to build up that audience, it's okay. My episodes drop every Tuesday at 10 a.m. No exception. And people build into that. And I know personally, like I, as a listener, but as somebody who works in this industry, I get frustrated if like the episode for a podcast that I want to listen to or my client's podcast hasn't dropped yet. And I'm like, hey, it's supposed to be there. When I wake up in the morning on Wednesday, why is that episode not in my feed? And if it's not there consistently, people will find other options. The challenge for any sort of like content creator is like, okay, how do I keep my audience attention? And the reality is, it's like, okay, what's your competition? Is my competition other podcasts? Your competition is everything. What's competing against people listening or watching this podcast right now? Well, they could be scrolling on their phone. They could be watching something on TV. They could be listening to other podcasts. There's 1,000 other things that you're competing for their attention. So you have to be consistent about that delivery, and you also have to get people's attention off the jump. There's so many people, and we see it from the data, that like, there's a drop off very quickly of what happens after the first 30 seconds of a podcast, what happens after the first 3 minutes of a podcast. Like, you have to be quick out of the gate, hit people with what is the purpose of this show and give them something to attach to.
Yes.
And if you just meander your way into your opening and what do we got going on today and like all that sort of stuff, boom, I'm out because I got 17 other things in my feed. And if you're not getting to the good stuff right away, I'm just going to jump.
Yeah, no, and it's so true. One time I will never forget, maybe I was in 30 episodes in, someone texted me and they were like, no episode this week. And I was like, what do you mean? Because I do every Wednesday, 8 a.m. And they were like, yeah, well, I'm waiting for an episode. I said, it's 7 a.m. They were like, oh, I didn't even realize. Like, they were ahead of their own schedule. But people, you don't even realize they do look for that, like, time drop.
Yeah, I mean, again, creatures of habit, right?
Yes.
It's why it was like one of the things that we always we discovered and we started to teach when I was at SiriusXM about like listening habits with the audience is what I was saying before about like there used to be this idea that like, okay, people get in their car at the start of the hour, right? And so that's why we always made a big deal about like on radio shows or whether it's music or talk about that, the importance of the top of the hour. And then very quickly we learned it's like, no, that's not how people do it. It's like if my commute to the office, if I have to be in the office by 8:30 and my commute is 17 minutes, then you've got me from 8:13 to 8:30, right? So we have to change our approach and how we connect to people, but that's their window, right? And so we have to just find a way to meet people where they're at that time.
Yes.
And understand like their habits are their habits, your habits are your habits, and you just have to find a way to meet in the middle.
Definitely. And where do you see podcasting and digital media heading over the next 5 years or so?
I mean, at this point, podcasting is a completely outdated term. It's kind of been outdated for the last 5 years. It's just content. Like, what's the difference between this show and any daytime talk show that is on network television right now at this very moment? There's none, right? It's podcasts are.
And you can watch this on TV.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there is no difference. There's no difference between this podcast and The View. It's people with microphones talking The difference is maybe you don't have a time limit to have to fit into this, hour-long block or whatever it is, which is the great freedom of a podcast, right? So to me, this is what the industry is. This is just content. And everybody's competing for the same sort of eyes and ears. And it's just a matter of like making sure I'm making my content available wherever everyone is, right? And that's why we've seen over this past year, the big push from the streamers, whether it's Netflix, Hulu, companies like that, to acquire licensing partnerships for podcasts.
Yes.
It's not necessarily that, hey, we need this to change our bottom dollar or bottom line or anything like that. Netflix's recent report certainly tells you that hasn't been the case.
Right.
What it is basically being like, I don't get to pick and choose where my audience consumes content. So I just need to make sure that if they're using my platform, everything that they like is here, right? So if you're Netflix and it's like, I know I'm getting your attention because you want to watch this TV show or whatever it may be, or maybe you're going to come here for the sports, that's fine. But we know you like Call Her Daddy. I need to get Call Her Daddy on this. We know you like to watch these shows from The Ringer. I need to get this because my competitor is you leaving my app to go watch something else on, a different app, right? Why can't I keep you all here?
That makes sense.
Excuse me. When I was at SiriusXM, this was kind of one of our approaches too. It's like, okay, we didn't care. I didn't care if you listened to the Fox News channel or to one of the sports channels or one of the music channels. We just wanted to make sure that we had everything for you at every time. And the same thing with like, what podcast would we bring on to the networks? Like bring on everything that you possibly can because we just don't want you to ever leave the app.
Yeah. And that's social media is the same way.
It's the same thing.
That's why these ads, they want you to stay in platform.
Right. And that's why we've seen pivots with Instagram and TikTok and even like, I'm not big on X these days, but like, the fact that podcasts can stream live on X, it's like ultimately it's like, well, if I'm on X and I'm streaming this podcast, that means I'm not watching it. I haven't gone to Spotify, I haven't gone to Apple, I haven't gone to YouTube because that's who their competitors are.
Yes. Well, we close out every episode with 2 questions that are very social media focused, being a social media podcast. And the first one is going to be, what's your favorite current social media platform? It could be, in your industry or personally.
Okay. Industry-wise, it's LinkedIn. That's far and away. I prefer it when people use LinkedIn for what it's supposed to be, which is for business stuff. So promote what you're doing within your career. It is not Facebook. So like, please do not. I don't care about your kids or any like, oh cool, we had a great outing. No. Share me like, hey, we just closed this deal. We're sharing this press release, stuff like that, right? The B2B stuff is really important. So I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, just looking at what my competitors are doing, but also just looking to see who are some people out there that are starting to, hey, there's a new network that has been publishing more podcasts lately. There's a new production company that launched. Great. These are all opportunities for my clients to get jobs, right?
Right.
So I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. And then from personal /work, it's I'm more Instagram than TikTok. I've been fighting against being the TikTok thing for forever. My brain already gets warped as it is through the muck that comes through on IG. But like, I spend a lot of time on Instagram, mostly one for just I'm a normal human being, so like that's where everything is.
Of course.
But for work, this is where I end up finding and discovering a lot of my clients. I would say probably 6 of the last dozen or so clients that I've signed, it's because I came across their profiles on Instagram, and I was like, wow, you're really funny. Wow, you're really entertaining. Hey, let me reach out to you. Have you ever thought about, you do a lot of short form content. Have you ever thought about doing long form? Yes, great. Well, that's what I do. Let's talk about a podcast and then see what else my agency can do to represent you and build your business.
Yeah, I mean, people forget that social media is supposed to be social. So it's nice to use it for that. And the last question is, what's one social media trend that you wish would disappear? This one gets all of our guests. They're always like, oh, but
all right. A trend that I wish would disappear, and but it's not possible, is I wish people weren't copycats on Instagram. It's, or just on social in general. It is really, I because I come from the creative side of like radio and television and like the challenge of like trying to create that bit or that idea that gets a reaction, right?
Yeah.
And again, a lot of times it's like, oh, hey, everybody's come up with a this or that style game, but how do you make that unique for your show, right? And to me, what really just disgusts me on social is like, you'll find somebody that creates a unique viral video, whatever it may be, right? And then all of a sudden, it's a flood of people parroting that video, like word for word. And all of a sudden you'd be like, well, the original person got this amount of engagement and whatever it is. But then Joe Blow or Susan X does the exact physical recreation of it, and it blows up because because they were piggybacking on it, the algorithm rewarded it, or maybe they had a bigger profile and they're like, well, someone small made something really cool, so I'm just going to steal it from them. And that to me is just annoying, and I don't like that. It's disgusting. If you can get rid of it, you can, but the people are lazy, and if they see something is working, they're just going to be like, well, there's no law that says I can't do it because, and social media content is not copyrighted.
No. Yeah, it'd be nice to, reward more of the original content. But you know what? This discussion has been fantastic. I want to say thank you for joining us today.
Pleasure.
And I'm going to link your LinkedIn in the show notes. People can connect with you if they want to be in touch. And yeah, thanks again.
Yeah, no, it was my pleasure. For any content creators that are out there that are looking for some advice of how to build their brand, or if they're at a point where their podcast is, starting to see a consistent audience and now they're thinking, all right, there's some money to be made for this, but how do I make money on the podcast? Please reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to have a conversation and see what happens.
That sounds great. Thanks.
You're welcome.